I don't know much about these guys, but I think you fight one of these things in Baldur's Gate 3. But yeah, let's see what these guys are about.
Tonight, I want to take your hand through one of the most iconic monsters in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. But before I do that, I would like to warn you that there are a lot of beholders, okay? Because of the way they multiply, which we will talk about later, it means that almost every conceivable variation of a beholder could theoretically exist. Today, I simply want to talk about those we can find on the Monster Manual and Volo's Guide, but I promise you I will...
Wait, Volo's Guide? Isn't Volo a character that appears in BG3? I guess that's kind of like a, I wouldn't call it a cameo appearance. He's like some dude who goes around interviewing people about like different monsters and describing them. Maybe he's like an in-game lore character to explain why there's all these like monster manuals and why people know about the different kinds of beasts and whatnot.
Do a part 2 to this video where I go through some of the more rare and interesting types of beholders we have seen roaming around the world in the past.
Didn't know there were different types of beholders.
Let's start from the beginning. I mean, what really is a beholder? There's nothing like it in the mystery of the Forgotten Realms, nothing that even remotely shares its features. It would be fairly difficult to say that a deranged wizard once created the first one, and that from that beholder the rest came forth, simply because it would be fairly difficult to imagine a wizard as deranged as he might be could create something like this.
Yeah, right.
For you see, beholders are alien not just to this world but to our sphere of comprehension. Beholders, like most other aberrations, come from what we call the Far Realm, a place of existence far away from our very own universe. Imagine our solar system. The prime world would be the planet where your adventures usually take place, which is called Toril. Now imagine our moon. Our moon would be kind of like the Feywild and the Shadowfall. Realms extremely close to our own that you could find yourself in there by accident or through a fair amount of effort. The planets of our solar system would be kind of like the realms in the Astral Sea. You can see them and they can sort of interact with you in different ways. You can find creatures from those planets inside of your own fairly often. And
well, granted, this video is quite old, so maybe some of this explanation was a little bit outdated, but regardless, I wouldn't expect the lore for the beholders to change that much.
And if you're a person of considerable magical prowess, you could even travel to these places. Think of the asteroid belt as the elemental chaos. You can find yourself in there even if you try to avoid it. Some of it might even impact your own world to create devastating effects. Now imagine the Far Realm as what is after our solar system. Completely unexplored territory filled with alien beings of bizarre powers. Creatures with their very own language, with their own kinds of magic, playing by completely different rules. This was a terrible metaphor, but I think it gets the point across. The Far Realm is pretty much inaccessible, and it possesses things that will drive any creature insane. And this is where the beholders come from. Now, before we get really started, I should preface that every beholder is different. The color always varies, the type of skin is always different, even the actual eye stalks change from beholder to beholder. There is, however, a few unifying factors. They will almost always be essentially a floating head with one single middle eye, surrounded by 10 smaller eye stalks. More often than not, it also possesses an enormous gaping mouth with extremely sharp teeth. Everything else, though, it's up for grabs. Their skin might be completely metallic, maybe even gold or diamond-like. It could be smooth and leathery, or it could be coarse, full of hairs, maybe with an insect-like exoskeleton. Honestly, it is literally only limited by the imagination, and that is because they are actually spawned thanks to the imagination. Let me explain. Beholders have the ability to change reality, at least to some extent. They can create things out of nothing.
So they're reality bender SCPs. Gotcha.
Fabricate objects out of thin air, most of this through their sleep. No one is entirely sure how it is that they do it, but the dreams of a beholder have the magical ability to become real. If a beholder dreams about how filthy he is and about how it desperately needs a bath, his entire surroundings might start getting magically covered in dirty slime.
So, what you're saying is that if we can teach a beholder to dream about anime waifus, he can make it real? The waifus can actually be real? I think somebody needs to get on this project.
The beholder dreams about how beautiful his lair is. The walls might start turning into gold or silver, or what was maybe one gold piece inside of a jar might turn into 100 or 1,000. where there was only one beholder,
What in
there
the
might
world?
be more. And see, this is actually how they reproduce. As crazy as it sounds, if a beholder dreams of himself, or maybe just looking at
Creates another
himself in the
copy?
mirror and contemplating its own existence, the dream might fabricate an identical beholder and create it in the real world.
But that beholder would also have their own sense of self and their own imaginations and thoughts, and so they continue multiplying like that in a very different way. This is actually really interesting. I like how this monster is being handled. I guess the limitation there is that it's only able to do this through a dream, which isn't really something that you can control. I don't think a beholder themselves can really control it. Maybe they just feel things and see things and interpret things in a way, and then that kind of gets compiled into whatever reality it dreams up of.
Of course, this usually devolves into both beholders battling each other and one of them dying, but the new beholder could
I guess they don't like
theoretically
each other,
spawn at a range of about 1 mile from the dreamer, making it possible for both beholders to simply just go their separate ways. The interesting bit, however, is that it doesn't end there. Like I said, the type of beholder is literally restricted to the imagination. A beholder that dreams of a battle it had a few nights ago where it lost a lot of blood might create what is called a death kiss, a type of beholder that is completely obsessed with blood and uses blood as sustenance. A beholder that dreams about his obsession with collecting magical items might spawn a goth, a type of lesser beholder that is obsessed with consuming magical items. Anything is possible. Even having its very own dreams change himself. A beholder that dreams about becoming immortal or generally about his obsession with death might turn itself into a death tyrant, having his very own magic change its own body. Now, regardless...
That's interesting. I wonder, like, well, we have names for these things, so they might be more common, but I mean, the possibilities are infinite when it comes to the imagination, right? And I suppose this also ties into, like, a DM creating some sort of encounter with a beholder. The DM gains, like, full creative ability over, you know, what the beholder can actually do, what it looks like, and how it will affect the party members. I think this is a great monster to have.
Of all the crazy forms that beholders can take, however, a beholder will always believe that his form and shape is best out of all of them. They are narcissistic to the very core. This principle, however, goes so far that a beholder goes to war with one another simply because they have a slight coloration difference in their skin. They could have literally been spawned from the same dream, but if they have a slight tone change, they will forever be bitter rivals.
So that means that regardless, a beholder will always be on its own, and there won't be any beholders like within a 1 mile radius of it. So this is like a singular like boss entity that you would encounter, which for the party is probably a good thing. I would imagine that this kind of fight would be extremely difficult, and with how much they can bend reality, I'm also guessing that maybe their powers are also different depending on their own imagination, like it was mentioned before. That like some of them are just like creating other beholders that are obsessed with particular things, and so they'd have a particular ability to pair with that, maybe?
Believing that their own body is the epitome of what a beholder should be. Anything that looks different is simply heresy. This narcissism usually devolves into paranoia, as they believe that the whole world literally revolves around them. If a rock, for example, falls inside of their cave, it must be because there's someone snooping around trying to kill the beholder. If the city close to the beholder's lair elects a new mayor, it must be because they're trying to find a new leader who will kill the beholder.
Really?
No person ever finds themselves casually striding into a beholder's lair. There's always an ulterior motive, and that motive is always to kill the beholder. This is why the vast majority of beholders are xenophobic. They attack and kill anything that might even remotely pose a threat to them.
Shooting a laser?
Because they have a severe issue with trusting other creatures.
Or a fire beam.
This makes it fairly simple to categorize beholders, to put them in one of two different folders. For example, the solitary beholders. The solitary beholders force weaker creatures into servitude by using their magic, either by charming them into submission or by simply killing others to threaten them. These beholders form lairs infested with all manner of lesser creatures, ranging from bugbears to bandits to kobolds to troglodytes. Anything that wouldn't prove a challenge for the beholder to control and or kill. These beholders charm their minions every single day, every hour, until the willpower of the creature is so spent that it simply chooses to obey instead of fighting back.
Gotcha.
Now, the other example are the Eye Tyrants. These beholders keep their xenophobia in check by actually forming organizations, guilds, or communities with other creatures.
Communities? I would not expect the beholders to do anything like that. Like, I mean, I understood the concept of, like, you know, charming smaller minions to kind of guard your, I guess, lair. But your community
will, however, of course, be the leader of these organizations, but will usually have normal conversations with other individuals instead of just vaporizing whatever moves. Both kinds of beholders, though, will always resort to despotism, to rule with an iron fist in a cruel and oppressive way.
I mean,
and that's just the way they will always work.
Wait, I think he used the word most. Does that mean that there is a beholder out there that is kind of just chill? I don't think that will be in their nature from what we've heard so far. But I guess it also depends on their dreams and imagination.
For every other living being is simply inferior to them. Combine this with the fact that every waking moment of a beholder's existence and every bit of energy that they possess is spent unearthing plots against itself in its paranoia, believing that there's always someone out there out to get them, makes it so that any form of dissent is considered treason and must be eliminated.
These guys have severe social anxiety.
This level of psychosis works for the beholders though, thanks to their genius levels of intelligence. See, a normal person that spends even just a few days worried about possible assassins infiltrating their house, not being able to get any sleep in its worry, would drive said man crazy. But not a beholder. A beholder has the mental acuity to formulate thousands of plans against any incident. So adventurers are out to kill me, eh? I'm going to have to formulate 400 different variations of their invasion of my lair, and I will prepare against every single eventuality. That's literally how they think. Do you teleport into a beholder's sanctum, riding dinosaurs equipped with laser guns? Yep, the beholder probably saw that coming and has a plan against that.
Oh my god, these guys are insane. How in the world did these things come to be? Like, was the magician origin story actually real? Is that what people usually use to explain the existence of beholders, or is there a different canon lore for them at this point?
Did you all polymorph into bullywugs, got ingested by a massive toad, and then had said toad magically protected against eye ray magic? Well, the beholder prepared and had just the right anti-magical frog repellent for just that very eventuality. Beholders are like Sherlock Holmes if he was trying to run away from debt collectors. Now, outside of their very impressive intellect and their special object fabricating abilities, what can beholders actually do? How do they even fight? Well, that's the scarier part. See, not many creatures in the world of Dungeons & Dragons have the ability to produce magic without invoking magical words or hand signs. Dragons, for example, can produce fire naturally without having it actually be magic. Anti-magical shields don't work against dragon breaths. It is literally fire being created through the glands in their throats. Any other spell that a dragon convokes, however, still requires it to say the magic words. They are, for all intents and purposes, casting spells. Even those that have innate magics like the drow, who can always cast certain spells regardless of their aptitude on magic, have to say the words. Beholders do not, and that makes them interesting. Beholders have a series of rays that appear from their eyes. I guess we could call them eye magic. Now, this is not a new thing. We know that medusas and basilisks have the ability to petrify creatures simply by having them gaze at them. Beholders, however, can actually choose what effects their eyes produce, and that makes them dangerous. A beholder can put their target to sleep, can charm them, slow them down, paralyze them, inflict fear upon them, petrify them, corrode their body, and disintegrate them.
So there's just no way to prepare against a fight versus a beholder. They can do pretty much anything, so you just kind of have to hope that you somehow beat it based on your wits and your rolls.
All of these effects come out of their eye stalks in the form of a laser beam-like effect. A beholder even has the ability to manipulate you in the form of a telekinesis style of effect. They can grab you, shake you, throw you up and down, and do whatever they please if you don't have the strength to fight back. Their telekinesis ability is so precise that they literally use this ability as their hands. They can manipulate small objects, shake hands, press buttons, what have you.
I mean, if I had that ability, I would too.
What's crazy is that they can use these abilities all together. You will seldom see a beholder who simply uses its disintegration ray at you, but instead will try to paralyze you, disintegrate you, and petrify you all at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's got 10 different eyes.
A typical beholder usually has the ability to use 7 different rays at the same time.
7,
making
okay.
any adventuring party seeking to overthrow
the typical one
to come very prepared or with a very, very large number of people. Now, these magical abilities only apply for the eye stalks above and around the beholder.
Not its main eye.
The middle central eye holds an even greater ability. The central eye of a typical true beholder has the ability to completely nullify magic. Anything that a beholder sees gets devoid of what makes it fantastical. Your boots of flying suddenly stop working, leaving you helpless as you plummet to the depths of the cave.
What the hell, dude? Okay, how do you fight this thing? Well, I mean, I did previously do a video on like the strongest named monster in D&D, and it was pretty insane compared to this. But regardless, I can't imagine. I guess you would have to come at it from behind, but then it has 10 eyes. It could probably see you, and it probably already thought of that plan, that you would kind of sneak up on it. So, well, maybe by utilizing like multiple party members, you could draw its attention to multiple different places or have it focus on one person specifically. And then everybody else can do something with their magical abilities. But man, like, just trying to imagine how you would handle this kind of fight is it's kind of overwhelming. I don't really have a good framework for this, so yeah, my imagination is just going off.
Your magical shield that deflects the disintegrating rays of a beholder suddenly stops deflecting. And at that very moment, when your cleric tries really hard to heal your fighter back, he finds himself lacking in power. This is the greatest asset that a beholder has, but it's also its greatest weakness.
Only what it's looking at, right?
Guys, I would like to continue this, but I'm running out of time. I am 4 pages into this script, and I haven't even scratched the surface on the different kinds of beholders, so look forward to the follow-up video on beholders. It'll be great.
Roger that. I might check out more.